Hi folks, we're here at Corkerhill Community Hub, deep in the heart of Pollock, and this is our weekly sport and memories group where we meet to exchange stories and laughs and banter. And how we usually start the group is with the ball I've got in my hand, which of course you can't see, and we introduce ourselves.
I'm Colin Burns. Thank you very much.
Colin Burns, and let's hear your favourite football team, Colin.
Liverpool.
Liverpool.
Never heard of them.
My name's Billy. By birth, not because of my father took me, Sunderland.
Oh,
And
I've seen your
team,
Sunderland
Billy.
strip, right enough.
That's always been your team, Billy.
Well, it was a kind of wee story. I mean, it was well, I know.
Yeah.
It's like you say something but you weren't expecting it to be said. So it was the game 1968-69 season of score up at Ibrox was Rangers 0, Newcastle United 0. Manchester City Spurs Cup semi-final, and at the end of the game it's 15 at a time, and who comes out? I was collecting autographs, was that kind of hobby of that year, and who comes out was Jackie Milburn, who is famous for Newcastle in the 1950s, where he won the FA Cup for Newcastle 52 and 55, and also played for Newcastle with Ronnie Simpson.
Mm.
And so Jackie Milburn, I said, "Oh, Jackie Milburn, I'll get his autograph." And he says to me, "What are you doing with a Geordie accent with a Rangers scarf on?" I said, "Oh, I'm a Sunderland supporter." And that's one of the greatest moments in my life. So everybody's gathering around this Jackie Milburn getting his autograph, probably wondering who he is.
Yeah.
Because of that conversation. And he wasn't young anyway.
No, and am I right in thinking that the Charltons were directly related to him?
Yeah, they were his
Ashington.
nephews. Ashington.
Ashington, they all come from.
Yeah.
And and in the future of all that, Alan Shearer broke his goal scoring record for Newcastle.
Good stuff. You might pass the ball on, Billy.
Right. I'm Neil.
Sadaka.
Sadaka, I don't know.
No, Simon.
And the team that I follow mainly is Celtic, but I also have a season ticket down at Old Trafford, so I go a lot to English football as well as.
What do you make of that, Colin?
And it went all over.
It's as well as something between you and him.
But, I've seen both of them winning European trophies, so
Great stuff.
right.
Thank you. I'm Ken. I support the only team in Glasgow.
Yep.
Partick Thistle. Unfortunately, it's in the family, so I can just take it back to my grandfather. As far back as that. So, it's in the blood. So.
Are they from Mary Hill, Ken?
Partick. Well, my grandfather's Partick.
Right.
So he actually seen them in Partick for the movement.
Did he?
Oh, wow.
Did they play for the bowling club? Or the cricket club?
No, a cricket club.
No, that was
In Scotland played games.
that's for Scotland.
Yeah. And that takes us to another brutal, maybe, but no, you're fine, because that was
First ever international.
correct. Hamilton Crescent was the
That's
first football international between Scotland and England in 1872. And the reason they went there was cricket was already established as a spectator sport, and it was the only ground that they could find that had turnstiles. So it was a shilling to get in, which I must have been a lot of money. And the reason it was staged there was they knew that they would be able to take the money properly, if you like, to the game.
First played at Corkerhill Pl. That's where the first.
Did they? Did you know that? Sorry.
No.
Thistle fans, yeah.
And they moved from up to Corkerhill because of the granary was getting built at Meadowside. So
Right,
the parade was at Meadowside. So that's when they moved up to Corkerhill.
Where the granary is, you can still see it.
No,
Ah.
where it was, no, there's all sorts of demolished now. That's really great.
Right.
Before they moved up.
Because they were famous for, there was the old story about, name a team that doesn't play in the place that they're named after. Partics was one it. Because people otherwise would know it was very old. Grimsby's another one.
The most famous one of that was when Raith Rovers scored against Bayern Munich, and the commentator said they'll be celebrating in the streets of Raith today.
The other one is Stennismuir, who the two places run into each other, but technically they're at Lardner.
My name's David Denham, born and bred in Brighton. I'm David Denham from Kilmarnock, similar alliterative qualities. I'm a lifelong Clyde supporter. Unfortunately, Clyde is relocated for Brighton quite a long time ago for Shawfield. Currently, we're in transit, we're in moves, we were at Cumbernauld for 28 years. We're going to Hamilton next season, which I'm quite looking forward to. A lot easier to get to. Possible to.
So what will you go? Train?
Probably get a train, aye.
Uh-huh.
I suppose that it was only driving to Cumbernauld was a bit more of the option, but I suppose there are different ways of getting to Cumbernauld to Hamilton.
Aye.
A lot easier.
Is it not true that Clyde send a car to pick you all up?
Oh, bugger us.
Oh, it's a smart car or not?
Well, my name's James and Celtic supporter.
Good James.
And the best thing I've seen when Celtic lifted the European Cup, and that's been back, and they beat Leeds, I think, in home and away.
Mm-hmm.
And that was, and the two best, number sevens, it was Jimmy Johnson,
Yes.
Jimmy Johnson,
Aye.
and Henrik Larsson. And that's,
Who do you think was better, James?
well, somebody asked me that,
Uh-huh.
and
Me?
Just a minute.
there was, at first I thought maybe Jimmy would have got it,
Mm-hmm.
but I looked at the different types of balls
Right. Uh-huh.
when you had something similar
Lacing,
to the laces.
ladder.
And so, and Henrik Larsson had a different ball again. So I would say maybe Jinxie just beats them,
Just scraped it.
but with the type of ball that was played down.
That's
Yes,
interesting.
that's a good point.
And what Jock's seen was, I've got an old video. He's walking into Parkhead, and somebody said, "Oh, Celtic are lucky." He said, "I'll just let you think that."
Thanks, James. Brilliant. My name's Simon. I'm a Jags man as well, unfortunately. But the reason for that's different from you, Ken. It's when I was 3 or 4 in football daft, as my mammy would say. I was desperate to go and see a game of football and buy a strip, but my mammy insisted that I was the only strip I could buy, any strip I wanted, as long as it wasn't Rangers or Celtic. Because we lived in Postle Park in Glasgow at the time, and either a Rangers or Celtic top could get you a sore face at least. So when I went to Lumley's to pick a strip, I had the choice of all the strips apart from the Old Firm, and there was dozens of them, if anybody remembers Lumley's in Sucky Hall Street, the top floor. And I looked at all the strips, and I narrowed it down to 2. I was only 4 years of age, and I narrowed it down to Motherwell and Partick Thistle. And I thank the Lord every day in life that I had the sense to pick the Jags.
So does Jim Russell.
It would have been a journey for you, Motherwell from Postle Park and Thistle was walking.
At 4 years of age, I wasn't all that mobile anyway. Jim.
No, your journey wasn't that good either.
Hi, I'm Karen. This is the first time being in your hub. Thanks for having me.
Welcome.
I support the Glasgow Celtic as well. You know, they really are one of the best. But my first ever football match that I ever seen, didn't attend it as a supporter. It was 1984, and I worked in Shawfield Greyhound Track
Right, yes.
when the Clyde played there,
Aye.
There you go.
and used to serve the pies in Bovril. So I did my mum's auntie got me a job in there doing dishes and serving snacks at lunch, half time at the football. And we used to listen to the rats running around, the place was watching with them. It was horrible. But that was my first football match.
Mike is going to be back at Sheffield one day.
So Davey,
Fair enough.
you might have well, if somebody can for the first time, you might well have been served a pie and bottle by it.
True,
Aye.
very, very true. And I was only 14. Scary stuff, there you go.
Thanks, Gavin. My name's Dave. Davey, whichever you want to call me. And
other things that we call you.
And as I've just been sort of prompted, saving the best till last. I support the Rangers. I've done since I was a nipper. Couldn't even contemplate supporting anybody else, other than maybe Storm United or something like that I've coached. But
You thought about it, Eastwood Theatre last week, did you not? You were swaying.
absolutely no compunction, if that's a word.
Yes, that'll do.
To become involved with anything that that man had to say last week, because it's mostly based on fiction.
It was really funny, guys, because I was sitting next to him at the Bend It Like Bertie play that Jim Orro, who's a walking footballer, and we went to see it. There was maybe, 8 of us there from walking football went to see it. And Davey, I had given him the ticket prior to going. He wouldn't have been seen dead in it otherwise, but it was a wee night out. So the whole way, most of the jokes were nothing to do with Rangers or Celtic or football even. It was just funny, hecklers and whatnot. And Davey never cracked a smile. Yes, just being in the company was enough for him, wasn't it?
Sorry, folks.
And he never knew the words of any of the songs.
But they didn't quite match the words that you guys were saying.
I knew the tunes that were once.
I knew the ones that we would have put to rather than East End, but no. I think if I'd sung the words that I knew, there'd have been a very big fight.
And he had to switch his phone off, that was the main thing, because his ringtone.
Oddly enough, I did get a phone call halfway through the thing, which I'm really, really pleased that I switched my phone off. My phone's ringtone is follow. What can I say?
Switched off now.
Pardon me?
Switched off just now.
It's not so selfish anymore. Unlike James, who saw his team lifting the European Cup, I watched the game that night in black and white on the telly before I went out. And I have actually held the European Cup, which was given to me by Tommy Gemmell the night they brought it home and paraded it round and round Celtic Park in an old McColgan's builder's lorry. It was absolutely filthy. Because I did first aid duty there, as I probably told you all before. And when it came time for a cup of tea, we went inside to where we would usually get a cup of tea, be brewed like this. And Jock Seed said, "You're not in here tonight, lads, you're across there." And as I turned to go, Tommy Gemmell says, "Here, have some of that," handed me the European Cup, which I held for probably 2.5, maybe 3 seconds before Jock Stein took it back. So I'm going to pass it on.
That's brilliant. That's amazing.
Yeah, thanks story.
I would like to hear the story about the Bend It Like Bertie night, but the guy asking the question.
Oh yes, that was
Like
pleasant.
that would be
If Davey was going to laugh at all, that would have been it. But no, he never cracked it. Never cracked it. The scowl remains
Yeah,
throughout.
the Eastwood Theatre, a week past Saturday.
Yes.
Jim Orr, who is a walking footballer.
Yeah, played for years with Glasgow and whatnot. He's written a few plays. Bend It Like Bertie's the latest, but the first one was Bend It Like Baxter. There's been Bend It
Oh,
Like...
that,
I never heard of it.
So this was his Scottish tour, really. I think they did about 10 dates of the play. That's to come. That's to come. And you've just let it out the bag.
Is the old guys beginning with a B?
Sorry?
Is the old guys beginning with a B? Is it going to be Bend It Like Beckenbauer next or something like that?
I don't know. There was one in the middle there after Baxter as well, wasn't there? Was it? It was a Celtic player, Brack.
That's so easy,
So it
isn't
looks
it?
like it because it kind of works, doesn't it? But anyway, Eastwood Theatre. The setup was that Des McEwen was very old. He wasn't impersonating them or anything. He was playing the narrative.
Des McLean's.
Des McLean, yes. of Bertie Auld.
So
And
famous,
during-
Simon.
Let's be
Remember
cute.
his name.
Basic rules. In case it
Different concert altogether. David did love that. During the course of it, there was different acts as we went along, and what punctuated the in between the acts was Bertie taking questions. But there were no questions from the audience. It was a voice that was coming on from the side, asking pre-arranged questions to Bertie to keep the thing ticking over. And it would be, how did you get on with Jock Stein? Or what was it like scoring the winning goal in the Scottish Cup final or whatever? The same voice every time, obviously fed in. But apparently, McLean told us at the end that when they did it in Motherwell, there was a guy up the back. Every time they did this question session, there was a guy up the back with his hand up all the time, trying to get his question in. And obviously there was never any question asked. And at the end he was asked, how did you enjoy the show? And he said, I was great, except I never got to ask my question. It was good fun. For everybody but Davey.
Sorry, to do the Bertie Auld Thistle thing as well, you know, was it not Bertie Auld that told them about the boy that got knocked unconscious? Did they do that story?
No. What they did was, it was a time travel thing. That's the plot, really, was that Bertie's, a supporter, just a Celtic supporter, female, was sent back in time with Bertie. The Tim Lords, and instead of Time Lords, it was the Tim Lords and all this stuff, all the puns that you could get. And she was back in 1965 when Bertie signed for Celtic for the second time, when Jock Stein brought him in. And they had been barren, the years up until then had been barren, and it showed you all the results for, 7 years prior to that, they'd won nothing. And Bertie came back mid-season, I think, and they were hopeless in the league. I think they were 7th in the league or something. But they won the Scottish Cup and Bertie scored 2 goals in the final and whatnot. So it was very much a tribute to Bertie Auld, set back in that era. With the people that were going back in time coming from now. So there was nothing in between, if you like.
Kenneth, it wasn't Bertie Auld, was it John Lambie done that one? John Lambie, the boy,
Thistle
manager at the time, do keeper and the whole thing, right? And am I right? It was Lambie. Boy gets a head knock.
Colin McGlashan.
So Colin McGlashan gets a head knock.
Right, I've heard this.
He's out cold and physio runs on and does his best for him and runs back over to John Lambie. He says, boss,
Doesn't know what he is, boss.
he doesn't know what he is, boss. Who he is, boss? He says, give him a splash of the magic
Sponge.
Tell him he's Pelly.
Yeah. Some character.
John Lambie too.
Well, Seymour, where they used to,
Sorry, James, what you said?
well, Seymour, where they used to train, right? They used to,
Before big games and whatnot. Yeah.
and Jock Stein was in charge. And see if you kicked in the water, you had to go and get it yourself. But 9 out of 10 times it was Reed Jinxie that I had to go and get it all the time. And
What were you, David? Have you any European experience?
Yes. Clyde played in the Clyde played in the Anglo Friendship Cup with a French team. They're the only unbeaten Scottish team in Europe. They beat Lens 4-0 in France and they won the return 2-1. And also the big bit of story in Clyde's history is 1967 when Celtic won the European Cup. Clyde and Gates of 2000 were finished third in the league. They're the only team at Celtic didn't beat in a domestic Scottish Cup tie drew them at the semi-final at Hampden, lost the replay. And they qualified for Intercity's first cup and they didn't actually get into it because there was only 2 teams, one team beat City and Rangers qualified in second place. So I think it was somebody like Dundee or something got qualified in 5th place. And Dundee went to semi-finals that year. Now Clyde was a better team than Dundee. So it would have been very interesting to see how Clyde would have, how far they've got in Europe.
It was because you couldn't get, it was called funny enough, the first cup that Billy was talking about was after Newcastle.
Intercities Fair Cup.
Newcastle actually finished 11th of
Really?
that season.
And won it.
And that's what got them into Europe by finishing 11th.
Huh.
Because it being the cities.
Cities, yes, aye.
Yeah, but also of that, Newcastle won that season.
Yes.
They beat Upa Stores 4-3 on aggregate, I think it was.
1971,
69.
69.
69. That's the same, they beat Rangers in the semi-final. Where at St James's Park, Newcastle 2, Rangers 0. And that's the infamous where the fans invaded the park thinking it'll stop the game.
Yeah.
And the funny thing, during the summertime, I went down, my family was still in England, Newcastle, Wallsend, that's where I was born. And of this game, was like Hearts were playing in a friendly, and the Newcastle fans from what you would call the Leazes end thought they would go over to them, and they're facing the Hearts supporters, taunting them. And Newcastle fans, being the older generation, if you like, stop this. We don't want you to behave like the Rangers fans. It was quite funny. And I'm standing, I joined them because my friends don't likewise.
Right.
So it could have been like another kind of a punch up if the Hearts fans. But the nice thing about the Hearts fans, they just took it on the, tongue in cheek.
How did Clyde end up unbeaten then?
Well,
it must have been another round.
No,
They don't
that's
knocked
the
out.
thing. It was a very strange competition.
Such a friendly competition.
It was
They
called.
didn't progress, just sort of shook hands.
It just came.
No, a new war broke out.
Funnily enough, they won the Scottish Cup 1939 and war broke out. They held it for 8 years.
There you go.
It was going to be till somebody else won it in 1947.
Glad you raised that.
Well, explain the unbeaten European run then.
Well, they played 2 games, so they got 100% right. They did win the 2 games.
It was a
It
friendly.
was actually a cup. It was like, do you ever heard Winter Total Cup?
Yeah.
Because that never actually went to a final. That was just a set of games, and that never went to a final.
Was that a means of progressing into the first round of the
Something
European
like
competition or
that.
something?
But the Anglo Friendship Cup,
Right.
it was Scottish and French teams, and there was other ones. I don't know what the other ones were. I didn't progress. I don't know.
There's only 2 teams in it?
No, there was several teams in it, but I'm not so sure how it didn't actually go. It just didn't sort of take off. It didn't sort of come
A bit short in details then.
You know what strikes you with the most important detail, Chris, which was Clyde were unbeaten in the competition.
He's blind to everything else.
I'll investigate that for you. Why I know.
67, no. Those Celtic won the cup in 67, but Rangers gets to the final that year.
That's right.
Aye.
On David, tell us about
They
getting a
got to the
final.
European Cup Winners' Cup final.
Mhm.
Same year.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't
Davey was
know
only in
that.
his 30s then.
It's a week later. Rangers played the final, sure.
Yeah, was it?
And with Roger Hyde centre forward.
Aye, the Roger Hyde centre forward.
Was
Right.
that I never
There
knew
was
that.
a guy called Roth scored the German goal.
Yeah,
And I believe that was Steppmeyer, Gerd Muller, and Beckenbauer were on that same team.
It's a World Cup winners, wasn't it?
What you were saying there about the behaviour of the fans, Bill, it's very interesting. I did an interview with a guy who's written a book about Celtic relationship with Villarreal fans. And it's quite special when Celtic went over there to play. It's only a town of 40,000 or something like that. But they did hit a chord with them, and there's still lots of links between the fans. But something happened at a game, and there was a lot of Celtic fans there. The last time they played them, I think, in Villarreal, and the Celtic fans started singing about the Rangers. And apparently this was a big no-no. It was a big point of discussion afterwards, because the Villarreal fans said, we don't have that in Spanish football. We don't hate anybody. It's all about friendship and families coming to the game. And that, what you're talking about, the Hearts fans there, doesn't exist in other parts of the world. That's peculiar to this part of the world, that animosity on the terraces.
It was of that kind of game where it was like a friendly anyway. And like I say, the friends I was say there was like 3 of us. They would get the Leazes end, you got the Gallagate and the Leazes being the opposite ends. So the Hearts supporters were at the Gallagher, and the Leaders fans, you know, they're the singers, if you like, or the choir,
Yeah.
decided to list the Hearts fans. So they came over, but they weren't kind of throwing punches or that. They were just kind of facing them up, so, you know, like that, singing to them. And then you got the older ones over nearby, stop this. We don't want you to behave like the Rangers fans. As in 2 months ago, kind of like.
Yeah.
And I thought, and then one of the friends I was with, the police came up, he was thrown out of the ground. I says to him the next day, what happened to you? He says, oh, they just threw us out and left us. You know, there was no punishment or that. They just says, right, off you go, pal. So he's kind of probably waiting to see if you could get company home.
That was an interesting story from Billy, now known to me as Billy the Sunderland Casual.
The operative word there being the.
Back to the Bertie Oldham, the thing that came into my head, and how badly Celtic were doing, you know, at that stage. Were you watching them at that point?
Was
right. 50s was a lean period.
Well, it's strange the 50s because the first game I ever saw up here, I'd seen matches down in Manchester. My father's job took him up here. The first game I saw up here was the Coronation Cup. And it was Manchester United and Rangers at Hampden. And United won 2-1. And then my father took me to Ibrox for the semi-final with Celtic United, and that's when I became a Celtic fan, basically. Then took me through to the final, obviously.
Yeah.
And,
What age?
well, I was 8. Aye.
Doesn't it look it, does it, Billy?
Well, you told me
my calculation, the Coronation was
Well, two
1953, I was born 1945.
But I
told me you didn't look like Coronation.
December, 28th of December 44.
You know, the one about the Bertie Old that sticks in my mind was that this lean period, right? And there's a boy still comes to a group in Motherwell, Jim. And Jim would only been a boy at the time as well. And often did they get to Celtic Park, James, right? But stayed in Muir Hill or Hollytown. And when Celtic still were playing Airdrie at Broomfield, it was walking distance for Jim. So he walked from all the way from Muir Hill to Broomfield to see Celtic play. And always playing. Would it have been an era of Wally Fernie?
Wally Fernie, Bertie hit the
They were going through a lean spell. And funny, Dave, we're talking earlier on about Blackpool. Well, somebody.
Is this non-funny, Dave? Funny, Dave.
Somebody in the crowd throws a pudding of some sort onto the park. And Bertie was supposed to have gone over and picked it up. And the thrower shouted to him, "Aye, that's you, old. You're nothing but a pudding." So it sounded like an apocryphal story. Only 4 or 5 years ago, I was lucky enough to be with 2 of the members from the Motherwell group at lunch that was put on by Motherwell Football Club for our group and other groups in the area. And we were lucky enough, Bertie Old was at our table. So I was sitting between Alec and Jim McQuaid, the boy with the pudding story. And I said to Bertie Old, "Is this right enough, this story about the pudding coming on the park?" He said, "Yes." He said, and better than that, Bertie says that he said to Willie Fernie, he held it up to the crowd, and what he was saying under his breath was, "We'll have a bag of chips later and have this with it."
I'm going to also add this on, being a Sunderland supporter. And I would say it was this, I can't recall if it was the same year, but I actually had the experience of climbing into Newcastle's football ground, you know, half an hour or so before the game. You know, there was a certain corner. I got into the Gallagher, so I climbed over. So basically I got into the game free. And I think it was Newcastle v Chelsea. So the following Wednesday, I thought I'll do it again. But this time, right son, I was huckled. And it was against West Ham, I recall that. And he says, what's your name and address? So I told him where I was staying anyway, as an honesty, so I never heard anything else.
What name did you give?
Simon McLean.
No, it wasn't Simon McLean, but it was Hank McLean.
Colin Eaton, Anfield often.
I've been a few times back in the past, but I've not been for years. I think the last game was a European games against Glasgow. Was there a vibe going on that?
When I was a boy, we always had an English team. Do you know what I mean? Everybody at school had an English team. Mine was always Newcastle United. And I've never been since. I've been outside it plenty of time. I've been in the shop, but a week on Monday we've got a tour booked at Newcastle at St James's Park to get around.
Right, everybody's welcome, folks. I can hire a minibus.
You take us to the bit that you try and jump
Well, it's the one it was, you know how you get your barbed wire, and then you get a tree stump. So I was like the tree stump and underneath the barbed wire.
Where did you, Billy?
68.
Right. So I think the fence that he managed to climb over in 1969, I don't think any of us is going to make it. 60 odd.
So who's your English team? Neil?
Me?
Aye.
Well, Manchester.
Oh, Man United. Aye. Ken?
Aye, well,
No?
plenty of stories.
Davey?
But
I wouldn't say so.
No? James? You an English team?
I would say Liverpool.
Liverpool. Yeah. A lot of it back then, I remember, was to do with Scottish players.
Aye.
I love watching Leeds United as well, with Bremner and whatnot.
Ken Douglas went to
That's my hero.
Kenny. Kenny going to Liverpool.
went to all the times to take Celtic game.
Davey, can you?
That.
English team?
And you?
Man U. Chris? No? Doesn't know what we're talking about. He doesn't know why we're here.
Say any particular
Preston
game.
North End.
Preston North End. And that's because of all the Scottish players that were there in your era. In your era.
It's a long story as to why it's that, but yeah, I love them. But Colin's going to tell us that it was, I think that was quite a common thing. Contemporaries of mine became Celtic supporters, became Liverpool supporters because of one man.
Douglas. Yeah.
Here when I was younger.
Yes.
My used to take us to Celtic
Talking about Douglas,
Yeah.
his grand, see the high flats, up just up the, used to be up the Rangers Park.
Yeah.
Me and him climbed over into the training ground whenever we used to play a football with Kenny Douglas.
Right. Because he was there as a boy. Aye.
But only boys
Yeah.
that time.
Do you reckon Celtic signed the wrong one then, James? It should have been you, really, shouldn't it?
With that,
It should have been you, not
see
Kenny.
the best thing about that range, see when you went up there to the Rangers Park, right, you just asked for, can I get a lift in?
Aye,
And,
didn't bother.
lifted in, and what we done, we would watch some of the game, and see when it was all getting cleared and that, all these ginger bottles used to
Yeah.
lie about
Aye,
there,
that's
and
right,
we used
you
to
can walk.
get the bags, and we'd be about into the chippy, and he would give us money and
See money in beer
maybe-
balls as
You
well.
got a decent amount back now, and empty in those days, didn't you? Did you not start?
There used to be beer bottles as well. Did we ever take beer bottles back in the day for money?
Jam jars for you.
I remember.
David remembers jam
I
jars.
remember jam
To get
jars.
the pictures.
I remember ginger bottles.
I see the jam jar.
Any
Yeah.
beer bottles you had to take back?
that's the jam jars are going back to.
I made for
He
years.
remembers.
God,
He
used to
remembers.
say,
I used to ice cream.
Guys,
she was into Iron Brew, and I used to sort of get bottles of Iron Brew every night, and I had a big sort of, I was actually a personal pension plan. I had in my attic, you know, and so I eventually had to clear them out. And I fortunately found a local retailer that sort of gave me dog food for it, you know. Because I actually got to.
Did you have a dog?
you still eat dog food?
But I think the last time it was 15 pence or something a bottle or something, you know. For,
I thought it was good.
Did they not stop it? Did bars not stop it anyway? One of them stopped the
in the
deposit.
sea, and they might have done it.
Stopped it.
Right.
Did they not bring it back because it was all? It was only
To get the glass, to recycle. But and see when you got a lift in, I remember my granda was it took me be 50, it'd be 10 bob he would pay to go to the game, and I got a lift in. That sounds a bit right.
Aye.
Far too much. Never get
There was,
See, that's what was I.
No.
when did they open? When did they open the gates at the end of the game? Now, because I used to hear my grandfather.
At half time. Half time. Firhill was half time anyway.
And quite often, my grandfather was a Rangers supporter, and but what men did was, if you worked to lunchtime, you could only go to Ibrox. You couldn't go to Perth or Aberdeen
No.
or anything. So he would go. He was that much a football fan. He would go to Shawfield or he would go to Firhill, but very often not get there till
Half-time.
half time. And I don't think he was.
I remember
It was
it.
just that the gates.
I remember
Nowadays, I don't think they open until 5-10
I
minutes.
remember it being 20 minutes.
See another thing.
It may have been half
Used to be
time.
half
but
time.
I
No, it's half time.
Yeah.
They used to, when the game started, we started.
Aye.
They used to open the gates.
See the other thing.
I think he used to. I mean, he used to tell me stories. Sometimes your granddad tells you stories.
Aye.
About him
You
telling.
don't know if.
But it was things like he would go to a game at Firhill, Thistle and Clyde or something like that. It was 0-0 at half time.
That's
They
it.
lost to me again and ended up 5-4.
Aye,
Somebody
aye.
saw the goals on the side.
The other thing about the Thistle and Clyde games in those days in Queen's Park, I suppose, the old firm fans used to come along when there was no game on at Rangers or at Aberdeen. So there would be thousands of Rangers and Celtic fans at nearly every home game at Firhill and Clyde. Was that the same at Shawfield?
Tell it, say, I don't think so much.
No?
So much, yeah.
It doesn't happen now, despite the fact that
I
the old
think-
firm play, they seldom play at 3 o'clock on a Saturday.
No, when
When the Jags
my
are playing.
grandfather and David would have been a man that was going to see football in the 20s and 30s.
Right, aye,
And I
okay.
think then, even by our generation,
That's dying away.
men more often than not got a Saturday and a Sunday off. It wasn't
Yes.
working till lunchtime on
And these
Saturday.
days too,
And transport.
Because there was
as well, I
reserve
think,
fixtures. I mean, the reserve games are
That's
played
right,
on a
that's right.
Saturday, you know. So I mean, a Celtic or a Rangers player probably go and watch this sort of reserve team.
Reserves, yeah.
You know?
well,
I remember.
your season ticket, my season ticket, usually a book. This is when I get down a smart card. There used to be a book and you handed in
Aye.
you put your
A voucher, right?
your book every week, and it covered every game reserves a lot. Obviously, every game at Ibrox where I didn't keep
Right.
Rangers playing. I must have been the last generation to remember pre-decimalisation. You mentioned 10 bob there. I had a shop once and 2 girls worked for me, and somebody wanted to buy something, and they kind of both, or one of them said to me while standing next to the other, "How much do we charge them for that?" And I was just 30 bob. And the two of them looked at each other and said, "As much as that?" So they were only maybe 5 years younger than me. So it must have fallen off a cliff. You know,
It was 1970, around about 1971, wasn't it?
It was around 71. aye.
Quite a year
Do you
that, Ken.
remember?
Quite a year.
Some of the programmes, I'm not got of the day, but some programmes, there was an era when the prices of everything, just for like a year or two, was given
In both,
26/12.5p.
Yes.
Some of the programmes that I've got,
I've got
I've
both.
got both on it.
Right.
how much was that paper?
Well, Davy Kinnairds in the Glasgow Herald, Scotland's newspaper. From
That's the last time he bought one.
he didn't even buy it, he found it in his son's attic. But anyway,
Right.
how much do you think a Glasgow Herald, Tuesday, 6th April 1976, cost you?
Well, it's new
It's
money.
New
It's
money.
new
yes,
money.
We're 5
I'd
years
say-
into decimalisation, but this
I'd
is
say a full shilling.
6 pence.
6 pence. Would you guess 6 pence? Okay, Chris.
Would you say 6 shillings?
Shilling, I said.
Sure, no, 5p.
Oh, we're into new money.
Oh, 1976.
All
right.
right. Make it
James,
10p.
any idea
No, I'm gonna.
or that clue?
I said 10p. Well,
10p, 10p,
I said 8 earlier.
8. Colin said 4p. Billy.
Already know the price.
What did he?
We had that
So
conversation.
does Chris,
earlier on.
he's got it right.
It was a consider.
The tragedy for the British population on the 6th of April 1976 was that headline 10p petrol rise in the pipeline. That's 10p.
It was a lot of money in the days.
And Howard Hughes died.
And Howard Hughes did it.
So what was the price of it?
6p.
6?
6 pence, sorry, 6
Look
pence.
at the headlines in the football bit.
There's no load.
It's a bit rough.
6 April.
Alan Russ first.
It's a bit rough.
ODS are through to the Junior Cup final. They beat-
Changed my
they beat
club.
Barnet United 5-0.
Alan Ruff.
And now about the football.
What year was it?
76.
76 is my year, my club to think that the year I played Hampden.
Right.
What have you, Chris?
When Scotland beat England,
They broke it.
when Kennedy,
Now,
They broke it.
do you know?
this one before,
Do you know, Karen? Were you selling the pies and ballroom?
when
What
Kennedy,
you made it in the field.
when Kennedy was put the ball from Ray Clement's legs,
Yes.
I played that day.
Yes, played at Hampden.
Did you?
Uh-huh.
Oh, yeah.
Was it Dagenham
I was in the
Papers?
BB and I was playing the drums. And if you look, and I always seen it a couple of months ago, if you look on YouTube, when Kennedy goes and turns away after he scored, you can see a big bass drum in the background. And that would have been
And it's your
very
face.
bad.
It's your
Was
face.
it, was the referee, was it Tiny Wharton or something?
Not that good.
Going back, he was, used to be a,
6'4" he was.
I
tall.
don't think he'd been refereeing a Scotland England game.
No.
Look at that.
No, it
No,
wasn't.
the Scotland England game, they all usually had a foreign. All the other international, home internationals, you know, if it was say Scotland versus Ireland, it'd either be a Welsh or an English.
Leo Holland, he was a
Scotland
Scotland referee, wasn't he?
was always top foreign referee.
Yeah.
There's some.
A Dutchman or a German.
Aye,
Leo Holland, he was the name of it.
Did Tiny Wharton wear a jacket? I think.
Yes.
Yes.
Right.
Well, they all did. They all did.
Very short shorts. Way up to there, do you remember the big sort of thighs?
Nobody else wore a jacket. I think.
I think they all did.
All he did was he patrolled the centre circle.
That's right.
He did not run outside. And his famous saying was, if you can't see a foul from 20 yards, how can you expect to see it from 2?
And I think he was the only guy that wore a jacket as a referee.
Oh, there's a few.
Lovely man, but he was quite well spoken. He was new.
Yes, yes.
Simon being the referee, we must have some time.
Loads of stories with Tiny Wharton. The one with Bertie Hall was a good one where Bertie commits a foul and he sees Tiny coming towards him, tries to distract him, you know, before he could get booked. There was no yellow cards in these days, of course. And he says to Tiny as he's coming towards him, Mr. Wharton, what would you say if I called you a bastard? And Tiny says, well, I'd send you off immediately if you did that. He says, what if I just thought you were a bastard? Would that scare you? He says, well, no, I wouldn't send you off then. You haven't actually said it. He says, well, that's all right then. I think you're a bastard.
I wonder what his reaction was to that.
Mr. Oh, dear.
He always called him Mr.
Mr.
Yes.
You know, he was very well, for all, you're right, Neil, about he wouldn't meet any standard of fitness or whatever to be a referee.
No.
He was very, very well respected by all the players. They all looked up to him, they all respected him.
Because of communication.
Because he communicated with them.
Yeah.
They always called him Mr.
Yes.
Is that because that's
Mr. O. Mr. Johnson.
Neil, Neil, a throwback for Hearts, I think Alec Young. Alec Young. Alright,
Hamilton.
Alec Hamilton.
Ali Hamilton.
And he had no teeth basically, right? So he played Guernsey during the game, but he was apparently a renowned Navy fullback, you know, he's in moaning about everything. And referee this, referee that. Orton apparently approached him like Newton with his plumbing accent. He said, Mr. Hamilton, if you persist in this constant berating of me, I think you'll find you'll shortly be reunited with your teeth in the dressing room.
Donny Brooks, who was a referee for many, many years, he's now sorry?
A pal of yours?
Who bit Donny? I'm the treasurer of the Colleges League and he's the chairman. It has been for 35 years. And Donny told me that when Donny was a young referee, Tiny Wharton was still refereeing, and he'd been moaning, Donny had been moaning about a game, and Tiny says to him, listen, what I find is that sometimes 22 is just a bit much to manage. So just get rid of a couple of them.
He also used to say, I used to see him, he used to say paper shop was me in the Rd. And I obviously had a chat to him, and I used to say to him, you know, you were very good with Celtic supporters, they're not too happy with you. And he says, if you want to check the statistics, you'll find that in most games, I would give 17 fouls to Rangers and approximately 7 to Celtic. I says, aye, but I says, most of the ones that you gave to the Rangers were 25 yards of the goal. Celtics were all in your centre circle. And he used to say, they could never do me in statistics. This is when you're quite right.
So when did he begin his refereeing? When did he begin his refereeing?
I don't know. I don't know.
No, I mean, is he in the 50s?
I mean, well,
Oh,
I know he was
I must have seen him from the start because Jack Mount was the man before that. I remember.
Right.
Jack
Yeah.
Mount. So I must have seen him from the start. So yeah,
And-
I did know he wasn't so famous anyway. So
I don't remember there was an older referee. And I remember there was a referee, but he was really just about finished.
See, there was no age limit at that time back then. That 45 came in because of Europe, I
But he
think.
must have been a decent referee when he was younger to get.
Yeah, of course.
I think it was a decent referee all the way through. I don't think anybody really questioned his ability or his respect.
No.
His integrity. Well, I remember in the football programmes and the announcements, so it was always
Did Tony Red before?
the town,
Hugh Gallas,
G.R.M. Gordon, brackets,
That's
That's right.
Aye.
Yeah. Brian McGinley, Torrance. Yeah.
or some who was
Hugh Gallas, Bonko.
Tiny Wardnell was always Clark's.
Clarkston.
I
That's
never
right.
put Newton Mearns down.
That's
No, but what did Newton Mearns?
Yeah.
It's right they stopped doing that because guys got to know therefore where they stay.
I really don't know.
He must have,
It was,
must have been jogging to paper shops. I used to meet him every Saturday night in the paper shop at Clarkson Toll. Right, and the two stood there waiting in the pink times coming in. So, he must
Ronnie
have joined-
Gordon in Glasgow.
Was he check what scored it? Was he his game? Was it?
No, he was just interested in the
I
sport.
don't know. Davy's sign came from Gollivona.
Aye.
That's right.
Davy and Tiny used to buy their Rangers news in the same newses.
He probably got it delivered. Free.
He was brought up in Parkhead. Tiny one, was he?
Well, does it surprise you then?
Is that what
He
he
was a
brought
childhood
originally?
acquaintance of John Kearney, actor and writer, and Jim Kearney, footballer with York City.
Right.
An engineer by profession. Took up refereeing at the age of 21.
He would have been like that. I'm very pally with Kenny Clark.
Mm-hmm.
Now retired, but he's on the supervisory,
Aye.
Yes.
referee supervisor. And the funny thing about Kenny was that although he was a decent goalkeeper when I knew him at university, he started the refereeing very early because he was the richest student at Glasgow University.
Yeah.
Because he stayed in Clyde Bank and you've got your Campsie Black Watches and all your local teams. During the season, he did 2 on a Saturday, 2 on a Sunday. Come spring, and got a backlog of games, did 2 on a Saturday, 2 on a Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday night.
Yeah.
It was clearing £150 a week.
Yeah.
And that was when it was only a tenner. Would that be about right? A tenner a game in 1980?
Yeah, that's about right. Do you know how much it is now?
Somebody told me recently.
300
40 or 50.
No, I'm
40
talking
or
about
50.
amateur football.
40 or 50.
It's been 40 for 9 years,
Oh, really?
and it's going up to 50 next week if it gets ratified
Right,
at the
right,
AGM.
right.
So £50 for an amateur game, we're talking here on a Saturday morning,
Uh-huh.
Davey. No,
Aye.
I think it's £800 a game to get for the professionals.
Yeah.
Isn't it? Yeah.
I've also heard that I've had what's his name? Bobby Madden
Uh-huh.
visited us at the Blantyre group a couple of times. Very, very good. He resented the fact that the Premiership referees in England had gone full time,
Yeah.
paid a lot of money,
Mm-hmm.
and Madden said that he used to look at, name of the guy that just retired recently,
Referee?
Moss.
Oh, John Moss.
John Moss.
I think it was him or somebody else.
John Moss is nearly the equivalent of
Well,
Tiny
I
Walker.
think it must have.
Aye.
Do you know what, Neil? It must have probably been him. Because Martin said that boy's getting paid 80 or 90 grand.
Mhm.
I'm getting £800 a game.
Yes.
And he said that his fitness level is disgraceful.
Fergie said.
Was it must be him?
Fergie said, and remember he's just retired. His final game was the big money game, Huddersfield, and that.
Oh yeah, Forest. Yeah.
Well,
Forest.
Yeah.
But Fergie, 2011, so going back 11 years ago,
Yes.
and I was at the game and it was terrible that day.
Mhm.
And obviously it was a surprise, although United ended up winning. title was a surprise defeat sort of thing.
Yeah.
Johnny Watt, and they castigated him in the paper. I think Fergie got taken up with the FA because he said, "You are not physically fit." You were so far behind the play, more or less. Tiny Rob was saying, you're so far behind the play. He was missing fouls in United players that went through and scored. Things like that.
See, as far as Scottish professional referees are concerned, is it not the case that a lot of them would say that they're in sort of top class professions and they don't want to give it up? And they're quite, if they were full-time professionals who get salaries, there'd be a lot of pressure on them.
Decent point, David.
I've heard Ned saying that.
Was a lawyer up
No, that makes
recently,
sense.
right?
He was a lawyer.
It might have been, you might be right, he might
Jim
not be
Purves.
willing to give up what he was doing.
For sure.
The £800 or equivalent that he would get, and he got some nice European trips and so on, might have been.
It'd be good if Mr. Ross gave up his job right enough, that would do us all a favour, wouldn't it?
It depends what you do. I mean, you get a referee who would be very good and you might not be able
I
to.
suppose some people would want to do it.
Talking of all these games, at the pleasure of meeting Willie Waddle before he dies. I was in his house, and I think I asked him about the fitness of the current players, and he said, he says, we used to play during the week. I used to play on a Friday night for some team, and I played for my work full time when he started it. I used to play for my works team on a Saturday morning and then go and play for Rangers on the Saturday afternoon, and then somebody else on the Sunday. He says, and they get all these players complaining that they've got to play twice a week.
Yeah.
The one against Madden, and he didn't comment, but a Celtic supporter, James, asked him the question about a certain game at Ibrox, and Rangers were 2-0 down, Dave, you'll never believe it, 2-0 down at half time. And
You got a penalty, did they?
Rangers got a penalty just in the second half. And everybody in the ground could see it was at least 2 or 3 yards outside the box, including the referee supervisor who was sitting in the stand.
No video evidence.
Who went down and got a hold of him after the game and said, "Bobby, for God's sake," he said, "everybody in the ground could see that was 2 yards out of it." Madden's supposed to have said to him, "What do you want me to do? We were 2-0 down at the time."
See, when it comes to football, I can't remember the name. If it was like, well, it was I think it was 1905. It was the first four-figure transfer in England. Like £1,000.
Yeah.
Can you recall the name of the player? Anybody?
I've no idea.
Alf Collins.
Right, that was it. I was trying to get the name. And there was another guy called Charlie Buchan. I can't recall.
Charlie Buchan, he was the first 20,000, I think.
Charlie Buchan's been my
I remember buying
he scored. In part of the transfer deal was £100, and he scored 22 goals.
Right.
That's right, that was Charlie Buchan.
And then he went on to do Football Monthly, possibly even that magazine there.
Charles Buchan's Football.
Well,
Jim,
Used to buy it.
That's cool.
we did an interview with Jim McCallaghan, who went to Leeds United initially from the Gorbals as a 16-year-old, and he took his family down. They gave his family a house, got a job for his dad, and all, resettled them and all the rest of it, and it was £24 a week. It changed the whole family's life.
But he also said that he couldn't pay him as a professional footballer. Then
Yeah.
he had on him as a
Aye.
him and Peter Lorimer.
They had to pretend he had a job so that they could pay him to get round the laws about paying amateurs.
Yeah,
and
did
that.
that way as well. That they took him to a printing works, him and Lorimer, and then they had a bloody clue why
Yeah.
they were there.
Aye.
And they came out and he said, "Why would we in there?" He said, "Because that's our job."
Is that your,
Yeah.
that's your boss?
Yes.
I thought I was here to play football.
A few drinks with Gordon McQueen one time when he was playing with Manchester United. In fact, I think it was a Lee Mackay testimonial, and
Fighting his own goalkeeper.
I got into this Barbadage night of me and the guys that I took down to the game. And anyway, he was chatting away to me when he went to Leeds. He was 18 or 19 when he signed for Leeds
Right.
from St Mirren. He says, and it was getting about 5 or 6 times the wage he was getting at St Mirren. He says, and then Don Reeve came in and says, "That's what you're getting, son." And then he says, with the next breath, "That's what you're giving up each week." He said, Christ, I was happily better off than I was.
Aye.
But he says it's the best thing I ever did because it was all the pensions.
Aye.
Aye.
Reby had
Who was the goalkeeper? He had the fight with his own goalkeeper, remember?
well, it was,
It was like Scotland.
it
Harvey.
was either Spraker, Gary Spraker.
Was it Man United?
Or the one
I think,
What,
I think it
Man
was
United?
actually Gary Sprague. And I think that kind of, and then what do you call him? Harvey, what was it?
David
David Harvey.
He kind of took over him immediately, kind of thing.
Right.
And I think that was probably it. And I think Gary Sprague, I don't know if he played big anymore.
That must have been Leeds. I thought it was Man
No,
United.
it was a
It was like the 1970 Chelsea and Leeds. And Gary Sprague was Welsh, I think, played for Wales.
Was, yeah.
And I don't recall, but it was suddenly just vanished. But also, I think, like Don Revie, and I might be wrong in thinking this, but you know, as in Sunderland in the late 50s, Don Revie and Billy Bingham played for Sunderland, and it was known in like 1958, the Millionaire Club, Sunderland went down for the first time in the history in 57-58 season.
Right.
And you know, I think they were formed in 1890. Sunderland also won, say, the league about, say, 4 or 5 times in the 1890s.
Yeah.
And so 1957, 58, they went down for the first time in the history. You know, what else? They had a player, you know, was it Trevor Ford, I think it was, £34,000 Sunderland paid to get him.
Do you remember Scotland's first £100,000 transfer?
I remember Colin
Yeah. I was working at Ibrox before lockdown. It was Mr. King was visiting Ibrox. God was coming to Ibrox, and I was in the corridor waiting on him coming out. And a wee man came up to me and said, I can't find my jacket, son. Can you help me? I said, I need bother. Do you know where it is? He said, it was hung up here. They had a rail that they put their coats on. And I looked and I said, what does it look like? What kind of jacket is it, son? And he said, it's a 3/4 length. It's got my name on the collar inside, like you would do at school. You know what I mean? I said, oh, that's great. What's your name? He said, Colin Steen. Honest to God, I'm nearly 6 foot now. I used to be a wee bit bigger, and I'm starting to get smaller. But he must have been about that height. I would say about 5'9". I remember Steen as a giant of a man, because I was a wee boy. You know what I mean? I couldn't believe it, like collapsed, embarrassment as well.
Chris,
That's a good one.
What's your name?
And did he scored a hat
Was
trick
down
in his
in the
first 2
tip
games for the Rangers.
Steen, yeah.
Steen from Hibs. Now, it might be
That's right.
stretching the story if the first, but certainly one of those 2 hat tricks was against his old club.
Yes,
I've
sir.
seen that.
Well, it was
I think it's 3 hat-tricks.
no,
And he'll get 3 in the
no,
first 3
he
games.
won 3 games, he
That
scored
was
8
2,
goals,
but
8 goals.
and he was sent off.
Yeah, 2 threes and a 2.
Eddie Mulheron, I think it was,
Aye.
whacked him, and he whacked him back, you know,
Right.
or, you know, kicked. And then he kicked him back,
Retaliation.
and then he was off.
Before we wrap up,
Aye.
I just remembered
In 6-1 against.
You haven't switched that on?
when we spoke.
midweek.
We spoke about the 30 bob right at the same position in that shop I used to deal with a lot of Rangers players, and Giovanni Van Rockford came into the shop one day,
Right.
and I don't know what instigated, but for a laugh he came behind the counter and he started serving people, and a guy came in and he had to take a double take, so in for and he started, Giovanni Van Bronckhorst started serving him. So, and then years later,
Aye.
who's the manager? I wonder if he drives past and said, I used to work in there.
You maybe come out for the money you never paid him.
Talking about, I remember earlier on I said that it was taxi, and I've had a couple of them. I had a Dandy Gorham,
Right.
which I picked him up from Saturdays. He'd been out with one of his girlfriends.
Literally.
Yeah.
You have to pick
One
up.
of his girlfriends.
Aye, and I took him back to his place at the Holland. But anyway, the one I was going to go on about was Ronald de Boer that I got him. And I used to do the Friday night shift and the Saturday night shift. Money was there. Plus it allowed me to go to the away games or whatever. And I could always do that. So it was a Saturday night. The Rangers had won at Ibrox. I think
Penalty.
No, I think they were winning the send off. I think it was 3-1 or something. But anyway, I was working obviously the Saturday night, and I was sent to it was China Whites at the time. I don't know how many different names it's had.
Aye.
What its latest one is, but it's China White. China White's Sunita, you're looking for Sunita, and I'm saying, so it sounds like a coloured girl, without being racist or anything like that. I just thought, sort of name. And I came round the corner to China White's, and there was these 3 girls talking, and black, if you like, black girls talking, and lovely dressed. And I thought, I'm 90% sure I'll be mine. And sure enough it was. I said, well, what are you about? Sunita? Yes, that's me. Right. So the 3 girls are getting in. Would you mind take this gentleman to the airport? It was Ronald de Boer. And I says to them, yeah, no problem. Of course I'll take him. So he sat in the front seat, the 3 of them sat at the back. So I remember I was going to Denison. Then I think I was going to King's Park, I was in North East Kilbride, which was the Sunita one. And the Sunita one was the girlfriend of one of his former Barcelona teammates. But he was in Qatar at this time, I think it was, probably, with the teammate, which is why he had come over. He come to the game, but he was also seeing them, and he had said, I think his friend was injured or something. He said, I'll see Sunita and all the rest of it. So anyway, I said, is it a wee problem? I said, because the hire I've got is Sunita. I said, from the town. I said, but I'm driving you to the airport. I can't charge them from the airport back with me. So I'm driving dead money. He says, oh, that's okay. I'll pay you double. So I said, right, that's just fine. So we went chatting on the way to the airport. And he says, chatting away about the game. He said to me, I bet you, he says, this guy at the next table to me, he says, I bet you he's got an exclusive. And I never said a word to him. I chased him because it was with the 3 girls.
Yes.
He said, I chased him, and that's Keith Jackson. He said, he came up, he says, you look at it. Sure enough, the record on the Monday, exclusive interview in the old film game, Ronald de Boer, and he had chased him from the table. But the other funny bit was, he's chatting away about, I told him I'd taken Albert's back to out the casino for a while, but back to his house, and he started talking about his teammates, and he says, you know, I'm a Russo. I said, aye. He says, you know, he's got all that hair. He says, but he's really going bald. He says, and you know, he doesn't wash his hair at all. He says, because he reckons if he washes it, that's why it goes there. He says, but if you sat in the back of a taxi, as I have with him, he says, he's got the most exclusive, expensive Italian perfume. Cannot hide the smell. He's never washed his hair.
Well, you know that Keith Jackson is the son of my old boss, Joe Jackson. And when Keith was a boy, he'd be 12 or 13, Joe thought that he was good at football. And we got him a trial. I'm saying we because we went through me to get the contact and got him a trial. And he's fucking rubbish. I hope you hear this, Jackson.
Sorry, talking about coloured people, a football coloured person story. I also used to do work at Parkhead, and do you remember Terry Cassidy?
Yes, I do.
Terry Cassidy came in, he brought his own team, came in the commercial department. So he brought a guy in charge of it, and a guy who was our manager, and he was a wee, I can't remember his name, a wee guy. I met up and see him, and he always wore a bow tie. But the joke in the stadium all and stuff is they knew nothing about football. It's called Terry Cassidy. Right, so Terry Cassidy knew nothing about football. The guy in charge of the commercial bar, and this wee guy knew nothing about football, and that was a joke. And one of the guys told me the story that somebody had phoned and he got through to the commercial department. Somebody looking for Paul Elliott. So Paul Elliott was coloured, 6'4", and this guy came out into the reception at Parkhead, and Paul Elliott standing with 2 wee Glasgow punters, and the guy would say, "Is one of you? Which one of you is Paul Elliott?" And then another same guy. There was a Pogues. The Pogues were playing up in the Walford Suite or something, and Paul McStay was there, and he came down into the commercial department. Really, the office. It was only the size of that. That was the commercial department.
The kitchen.
And he asked for something, and this guy with the bow tie says, "Who are you? You one of the Pogues?" So he had to say, "No, I'm the team captain."
Well, listen, folks, we need to wind up because we're way over time.
Okay.
As we often are.
Yes. Yeah.
And save some more stories for next week. We're all looking forward to it already.
No shortage of stories, Jim. Thanks for coming out.